Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Brothers channel. And in this video I'm going to be doing a versus comparison between the Nike KD13 and the Nike Kyrie 6. So the KD13 is 150 bucks and the Kyrie 6 is 130 bucks. So only a $20 price difference. I guess there's a little bit of difference, but for the most part it's pretty similar as far as pricing goes. The tech that you get is a little bit better, I guess, in the KD13. But the materials, we'll get into all that. If you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave a link in the description box. But let's get it started off with the traction. So the traction, if you're playing on a clean court, is awesome, right? So the KD13, I haven't played on the indoor court, so just take it with a grain of salt. But I asked you guys if the KD13 had good traction on indoor court, and I'm very jealous because a few of you guys actually are playing on an indoor court right now and I really want to play on the indoor court. But anyways, shout out to the Soul Squad, and I'm trusting you guys. But like I said, I asked a lot of you guys and you guys said the KD13 traction was really good. And obviously the Kyrie 6 I played indoors and also outdoors. Solid bite. But the Kyrie 6 picks up a little bit of dust. The KD13, I also asked on dust, and you guys said dust was really not an issue for the KD13. Outdoor use, they were both really good. I would say the KD13 was a little bit more consistent and also had a little bit harder of a bite. So the KD13 was just a little bit better for me on an outdoor court. As far as durability goes, I would say the KD13 is a little bit better. Like this circle pattern, the rubber is a little bit harder. And obviously it's not the best though for outdoor use. Like it'll definitely wear down a little bit quicker than like something like XDR rubber, but I would say it's definitely way better than the Kyrie 6. It's definitely not durable at all. But one thing that you do get in the Kyrie 6 is the outsole curvature. So obviously if that's something that you want, then go with the Kyrie 6. But the KD13 also has a little bit of an outsole curvature, you know, obviously not on the level of the Kyrie 6, but you still get a little bit of curve where the ball of your foot is. The rubber doesn't really come up as much as the Kyrie 6 though. So if you're doing that type of movement, obviously you don't get as much grip, but you do get this type of motion, which feels a little bit nicer than I guess some other shoes that are completely flat. All right, moving on to the heel to toe transition. I mean, as far as the shape goes, they're both super nice. You have a nice curved shape here in the heel as well as in the forefoot, right? But then the Kyrie 6 is a little bit more stiff in the forefoot, you know, just a little bit. I mean, you still get a good amount of flex, but I have to like put a good amount of force to flex it. The KD13 is a little bit easier, right? So the KD13 just feels a little bit smoother as far as the heel to toe transition. The Kyrie 6 definitely isn't bad. And then as far as the actual cushioning setup goes, obviously I would think most people would like the KD13 because I like the KD13 a little bit better as well. In the forefoot, they both feel pretty similar. Obviously, I would say the KD13 you can feel like a little bit better, but the Kyrie 6 Zoom Turbo, once you break it in, you can definitely feel the zoom in. It feels nice, but obviously there's absolutely nothing in the heel. It feels really bad. The foam is super stiff, and if you do any type of heel strike, it's gonna hurt, right? And obviously, if you do a heel strike in the KD13, it's not gonna hurt as much because you have that zoom unit, and your heel's gonna dig into the zoom unit. And obviously that's going to absorb some of the impact, so it feels a lot better in the KD13. As far as the court feel goes, they feel pretty similar. I would say the KD13 feels just a little bit higher up off the ground, probably because of the zoom strobo unit. And also you're not really going to notice this that much like when you're playing in the Kyrie 6 versus the KD13. I just noticed it when I had both of these shoes on at the same time. Like the Kyrie 6 was on the left foot and the KD13 was on the right foot. So the Kyrie 6 feels a little bit more flat as far as like the actual offset goes. The KD13 has a little bit more of an offset, so there's a little bit of a difference there. But obviously because of that zoom unit, the KD13 is better. But in both of the shoes, you're really not gonna get anything from the midsole. All right, moving on to the materials. So as far as the quality goes, I would say the Kyrie 6 feels better. It definitely feels more premium, which is kind of interesting because it is a cheaper shoe. I don't know what Nike was doing in the KD13. I'm very disappointed because the material in the KD13 is straight ass, right? So this material, it just feels cheap and it feels a little flimsy, right? But then once it's on foot though, it really doesn't matter. Like I don't really mind the cheaper material as long as it feels great on foot. And that's the case for the KD13, right? So it's super thin. It conforms to your foot pretty well, even though I said it's a little flimsy, but I don't really notice it as much when it's on foot. It's a supportive material as well. And as far as the foam padding goes in the tongue, I would say it's around the same. You know, there's a little bit of padding. And then in the ankle area, the Kyrie 6 definitely has more padding. I would say like double the padding, which is crazy. And as far as the thickness goes in the toe box area, the Kyrie 6 is definitely a lot thicker. It's not super thick to the point where it's like very cumbersome, but I mean, you have this midfoot strap, you have this like rubber thing here in the toe box area on the medial side, which gives you a little bit more like durability if you do toe drags, but it's like, it's a little much, you know? So I mean, like if you're going for quality and you want the shoe to feel a little bit more cozy and I guess a little bit more comfortable on foot, then go with the Kyrie 6. But personally for me, I like to have a very minimal upper, so I'm gonna have to go with the KD13 on this one, just in my personal preference. All right, moving on to the fit. The fit is very similar in both of the shoes. I would say the KD13 is a little bit like narrower, but as far as the fit goes, I went true to size for both of them, and they're both incredibly snug. So if you have at all like a thick or a wide foot, you should probably stay away from these shoes. But if you really want to get a pair, probably go like up an entire size. So lengthwise, I was good to go. I feel like the Kyrie 6 is a little bit like shorter lengthwise than the KD13, but just by a little bit. In the toe box area, they're both extremely snug. And like these materials don't stretch out as much. I would say the KD13 material stretches out a little bit more like once you break it in. The Kyrie 6 really doesn't like stretch out at all. And then widthwise, like I said, they're both narrow, but the KD13 is a little bit more narrow. Like in both of the shoes, I can't even curl my toes up, that's how snug the fit is. All right, moving on to support and lockdown. I mean, lateral containment, I had no issues in either of the shoes. I feel like if you're a little bit bigger, you might feel a little bit more supported here in the Kyrie 6. Like I said, I didn't have any issues, but I am lighter. So if you are heavier, just take that into consideration. And as far as lateral stability goes, I would say I didn't really have any issues in either of the shoes. But if you look at how wide both of these shoes are, I would say the Kyrie 6 is a little bit wider, you know, but that's not a huge deal. And also like the Kyrie 6 is a little bit rounded here on the edges, so it really doesn't make a huge difference. They're both laterally stable. And also both of these shoes are mid cuts, but the Kyrie 6 is a little bit higher. If you look where the last eyelid is, it kind of comes up a little bit higher, right? So because of that, you get a little bit more ankle support. Like the Kyrie 6 actually has pretty good ankle support. The KD13, not really. So maybe just this extra material gives you that like support, which is interesting, because if you like look at the actual back of the shoe here, it's pretty much the same height. Yeah, the Kyrie 6 has better ankle support. All right, moving on to the weight. Obviously, the KD13 is going to be lighter. I think that was like 12.13 ounces. That's a little bit lighter than average. And then the Kyrie 6, I think, was like 13.76 ounces. So that's a considerable difference. You know, like I said, the Kyrie 6 definitely feels heavier, a little bit bulkier as well. Like you have this crazy external TPU heel counter. The heel cushioning kind of like protrudes out a little bit more. You have the strap, the materials and the padding is a little bit thicker in the Kyrie 6 as well. So if you want the overall more minimal and lighter shoe, obviously go with the KD13. But like I said, if you want like the more kind of comfortable and a little bit more cozier shoe, then go with the Kyrie 6. All right, as far as ventilation goes, yeah, the Kyrie 6, hell no, it's super hot. The KD13 is a little bit better. I mean, there's not crazy airflow throughout this material. Like if you blow through it, you don't get crazy amount of airflow, but it's a very thin material and it wicks away moisture, so it's definitely better than the Kyrie 6. As far as the aesthetics go, I will have to go with the KD13 as well. I'm just not a huge fan of the Kyrie 6 for some reason. Maybe it's the strap? I don't know. In my opinion, I definitely think the Kyrie 5, the Kyrie 4, the Kyrie 3, the Kyrie 2, and I guess the Kyrie 1 look better than the Kyrie 6. You know, the Kyrie 6, I definitely don't hate it, but I just don't think it's like the best looking shoe in his line. KD13 definitely grew on me, and I like what they can do with like the swoosh, like the oversized swoosh. I'm a huge fan of oversized swooshes. I'm sure there's a good amount of you that don't like it, but I like it. So the KD13, in my opinion, looks a little bit better. Tell us what you guys think looks better down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, I mean, they're both great performers, but for me, in my personal opinion, I like the KD13. So the cushioning is better and the overall shoe is lighter and more minimal. And basically those are the only reasons, right? So the Kyrie 6 is solid. I would say the outsole also not being durable is an issue as well. But I love the outsole curvature, the Zoom turbo unit in the forefoot feels great, but the heel is ass. I mean, like I keep saying, it's just a little too much padding and just a little too much going on in the upper, you know, just in my opinion. So that's why I don't like the Kyrie 6 as much, especially like in his entire line. And obviously, like I keep saying, if you don't mind the extra weight and you don't mind the thicker material and you like to have like a lot of padding in the ankle area or whatever, then the Kyrie 6 is a solid option. But anyways, that's the versus video. Again, if you guys want to cop either of these shoes, I'll leave links below. But that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.